Are you looking for American-made guard equipment at affordable prices? Guard Gear UK is your one-stop shop for all your Winterguard and Color Guard requirements. We supply a wide range of rifles, sabers, gloves, and equipment, all made by our partners in the USA. Not only that, but we also offer free shipping. That's right, free shipping to all mainland UK addresses. Why not upgrade your group today with some premium US-made guard equipment from Guard Gear UK? Find out more at www.guardgear.co.uk. Guard Gear UK is proud to be supporting the WGUK 2021 season.
So yeah, hi guys. As Sharon mentioned, so this session, this WGUK virtual educational session, is based on a basic introduction into the judges system. So we're going to be going through the judges system in terms of breaking down into individual captions. We're fortunate enough tonight that we have the judges on here as well. We have a selection of judges that have joined us for the evening. So we've got Darren Darton, Richard Gubby, Sam Catcliffe, Peter Lippiat, who's our judges coordinator, Ken Mansfield, and of course Tony Lees is on there. And if there's someone else that's on here, I obviously can't see them. And and Ivan Bullshin. And I think Ivan's waving at me then as well. So we've got a really decent panel of judges. If there's anyone else that I've missed off, just let me know. But you'll see that there's some natural breaks within this presentation that will interact with the judges, and you'll have an opportunity to ask our judges some of their opinions on some of the points. So I welcome the judges to get involved in those points. We'll try and make it as interactive and engaging as possible. Otherwise, I'll destroy you by the means of PowerPoint, which is something I'm very keen to avoid this evening. As Sharon has mentioned, we've got the chat down the side there as well, but there will be natural questions, Q&A sessions, 3 in between the sessions as well. And like I say, it's a basic introduction. We've got our experts that will be kicking in future sessions that we'll come on to later as well. So let's get cracking. So I'm going to try and do the share screen. My gosh, hopefully you can all see this when I get going. Woo. Okay. Come on. Whoop. Can we all see that? Alan, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Yes. Brilliant. So success so far. So this is this session. So as you can see, it's a basic introduction to the judges system, and delighted to have our sponsored by Guard Gear UK, who are sponsoring our virtual events as well. So special thank you to those guys as well. So every year the WGI update their WGI manual, and within their WGI manual, which is updated yearly, there's not necessarily a lot of changes, and WGUK tend to follow most of their policies. However, their policies are listed. This is a downloaded document that is sent to all WGUK membership groups. MPA UK, WGUK will email this out to your organization contacts, and then it's up to you to share amongst your staff team, your designers and technicians. It's a PDF version, so you can upload it to somewhere centrally or send it via email, but it's not for sharing, and due to copyright rules as well. This also includes the WGI values. So you'll see that when you receive this nice thick manual, if you ever want to, it has the WGI values as there that certainly echo some of our WGUK ones as well. Apparently someone...
You're on slideshow so everyone can see
Aha.
the slides.
Which is not a problem. How do I do that? There we 2 seconds.
Can you all see the slides down the side? Everyone?
Yes, we can.
How do you change that? Yeah.
That's it.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Oh, you can, right, okay.
Didn't look any different on your screen.
Didn't look any different on my screen. Right, okay, well, that's okay. Right, so I'm confused now because I've got two screens and I can't see.
Yeah. Oh, I can see the next slide as well. Waiting to come up.
Right, you can.
It's better than it was.
Press F5, Barry.
You've got it in presenter view, probably.
Yeah, exactly. That's better. We're now just seeing the one. Yeah, we're just seeing the latest one. The one we're seeing is the updated yearly policies, WGI values and judging system one.
Perfect. For now. That's good. Thanks. Thank you. So yes, of course, the WGI manual also now includes the judging system, and that is the part that the WGUK judges, and that's the criteria that we use here in the UK. And of course, they use the same system in CGN. WGUK published their own manual. It's the Rules and Regulations Manual. That is equally updated manually, and that is available for everyone to download on the website, which is the new website as well. So you can go to wguk.org.uk/downloads, and that is available for everyone to go in and check. And that includes everything from the timing of your show in terms of recognized equipment. However, it doesn't include the judges' criteria. So something for us to probably consider moving forward, albeit you can use the WGI manual. So just as an introduction as well, I thought it'd be a great opportunity while we've got you all on board with us this evening. It's just to let you know who's who. So this is the WGUK board. So Mark Nicholson, who's on the call this evening with us, is our chairperson. Dave Barnum is our deputy chair. Pete Lippiat is our judging coordinator. And then the board is made up of Lee Cole, myself, Jason Hawke, and Sharon. And Sharon also has the role of the membership liaison coordinator. Once again, if you go to the wguk.org.uk/who's who, you'll actually get this information there as well. Of course, just for those who know, Alan Thompson obviously didn't feature there on the board, but Alan heads up the MPA UK board, which also is kind of the group holding organisation for DCUK as well as WGUK, and Joe Fitzpatrick, and our treasurer Mark Guttridge, who's also our WGUK treasurers as well. And then finally, in terms of the who's who, it's the membership education team. So currently it's Sharon Smith and myself, and I'm sure that will evolve and grow over time, certainly as we venture into new areas, and we're bringing in new people and new experience. So that's just a bit of a who's who, bit of an insight into the manual, where we get the system from, and who's who, just so you can put faces to name. And I think most of the board are on this evening as well, so you can check out their faces or their logos. So I appreciate some of this, now as we'll go into this content, might feel like a bit basic for some, but great for others. And this is a basic, this is what this is all about. This is a basic introduction into the judges system itself. So let's go through the captions. So there are 4 captions. First, in no particular weighted order, we have equipment, movement, design analysis, and general effect. So we have 5 judges on a traditional panel. Of course, the only caption that has 2 judges is general effect. You'll also be familiar that certainly we're typically at the first show of the season, the middle show, which most likely be Stoke, and of course finals. This is double paneled. So you'll likely see 2 equipment judges, 2 movement judges, 2 design judges, and 4 general effect judges. Sometimes that is purely based down on if we have space to put everyone. As you can imagine, that will be 6 judges very closely snuggled up together upstairs, and albeit the equipment judges to get a lot of space, so they have to squeeze in as well at times. But that is our typical traditional kind of setup for a panel. So now what we're going to do is go through the individual captions. So we'll go through each individual caption. So this is where I'm going to try to avoid death by PowerPoint, because what I've done here is taken the criteria from the WGI manual. So it's their words. I didn't really want to type it up. Let's just cut it out and put it out there. But actually, before we get through to that, I think it's really interesting for you all to understand what the judge's process is in terms of, like, they have a criteria, but how do they generally use that? And the judge's process, and this works in WGI, WGUK, CGN, anywhere that's using this process. So the judge's primary job is to rank. That's the first that they job. So when they're watching your Winterguard perform, they're going through a comparison process in their mind and figuring out where this group ranks. They're not thinking about a score at this point. It's purely rank. So number one is to rank. The number two responsibility is to rate, i.e. then to reward the score. So this is where they'll position you. So they'll position you and then they'll reflect on the score and where that score might likely feel and likely think. So it's to rank you and then score you. And this process is applied to both the what and the how, i.e. your vocabulary and achievement, or repertoire and performance. So they're both individually done. So you could be ranked 1 in vocabulary in first place, but you could then be ranked 4th in excellence, because they're individual competitions that are taking place in your vocabulary and your achievement or your repertoire performance, or what we call your what you're doing and how you're doing, which is the most simplest way to do that. So that is our general process. Once they've done that, you'll get a total score. Now, you may be happy with that score, you may be not. Let's presume that you are happy with that justified score. So they don't come up with a total score and then try and break it down. It's processed in this order. So you're ranked, then you're rated, and that will give you your total score. And that is as simple as it is. Easy peasy, right? Maybe not. So let's go into equipment. And we're fortunate this evening that we have equipment judges Richard with us tonight, Richard Gubby, I know obviously Darren, who multitasks, and Ivan, who multitasks as well. So we have 3 judges with us this evening. So when we get to the end of the equipment and movement, we'll open up the floor and I'll figure out how to come off of the presentation mode, and we'll have like a bit of a Q&A session, because you will have questions, I'm sure. And it'd be nicer to hear other people's voices rather than mine. So equipment. So this is what the judge's criteria sheet looks like. This is what it says in the manual. So this is the equipment, i.e. what you're doing. So this is referred to as vocabulary. So as you'll see there, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major points in the middle. So those are the 5 major points. So that is a range and variety of equipment skills, the dynamic range through the efforts of space, time, weight, and flow, depth, range, and variety of blended between equipment and body. So whilst this is equipment, the equipment judge is still looking at the body and I guess how the body maybe affects, enhances, or maybe restricts some of those moments, and the range of material that is most compatible with performance training. We're using an A-class sheet for this particular presentation here. So those are the 5 main vocabulary points. And of course, behind those points, there is lots more detail that the judges have to make themselves very, very familiar with. You'll see that the score is out of 100. You've got at the bottom of there, you've got boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are your scoring ranges. We don't use box 1 very often, if at all. I think that would be very harsh. Most groups probably start off round about box 3 and work their way up, or top of box 2. As you can see, this is the information that the judge will use. Of course, we don't use paper sheets now. It's all on tablets, but you'll be familiar with a judge when you meet within critique, that they'll have this information in front of them to refer to. And this information is readily available to you because this is in the WGI manual that your organizations receive. We'll move forward. Oh, just as a quick heads up, actually, as you see these 5 bullet points here, they are not weighted. So range and variety of equipment skills is not worth more points, or it receives more attention than the range of material most compatible with the performers. That is not in a weighted order. It's essentially a list. something that question normally gets asked. So that's equipment. That's like what they're doing. So what have you asked them to do? What is your choreographer designed in terms of the equipment? And that's flag, saber, rifle. It's all equipment. So on the back of that sheet, in terms of, okay, well, how do I get from box 1 to box 2, box 2 to box 3, box 3 to box 4, box 4 to box 5? This is what the judges is using at. I guess it's more of a criteria checklist to see where that group is. As you'll see at the top, let's look at box 3 at the top. Box 3 sometimes knows. And within there, you can be the top of lower box, middle box, top box. You see 30 to 39. So that's some. Middle of box 3 is most, and 5 or 50 to 59 is all, and all of some and some. But more importantly, or more clearly, are the boxes that's underneath there. So there's 4 boxes there. So if we stay within box 3, we look at, there is some variety, there are longer phrases, may still be in a work in progress, but provides adequate opportunity in terms of range and variety of skills. So just take a look at that there, just to familiarize yourself, because down the middle, those points of comparisons that we just presented at the on that first slide is down the center. And these are the points. This is how you make your points. This is how you travel from box 2 to box 3 to box 4 to box 5. And the more you journey through box 4 to box 5, of course, you know, it becomes more clearer, becomes more, the performers are understanding it, they're achieving more. And so the more, I just need to let someone in. That's Carly Rogers. She's just joined us. So you can see how the more you're achieving in terms of vocabulary, the more points you get. So that's the equipment what. So how? So we did the vocabulary, and this is excellent. So this is all about the performers. So once again, box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. It's a scoring range, and this is based on excellence, achievement. So understanding and application of equipment principles, the performers understand, and application of dynamic range through efforts of space, time, weight, and flow. The performer's achievement of blended body and equipment, the performer's development of breath, muscle, tension, flexion, and rotation, and the training to support the vocabulary. Those are the 5 key areas or 5 points of comparisons that the judges are looking at for the performers to achieve the level of excellence through equipment. Once again, the scoring range is exactly the same as it is on the vocabulary on the earlier slide in terms of the what. So there's points of comparisons for everyone. Something for you to know. So when you come into reviewing your scores, every caption has this at the bottom, which is called the sub-caption spread guidelines. The judges you may hear judges call it the value of the 10th. And this is used within the the Winterguard season, as well as the drum corps season. So when you're trying to see how far you are from, I guess, if you're in second place and you're like 1/10 away from them in vocabulary, the judge would perceive that as an insignificant difference, like absolute insignificant. If you're 2 to 3 temps away from your competitor, or maybe ahead of them 2 to 3 temps, there's some slight differences. 4 to 6 temps, there's some moderate differences, and 7 or more, that's significant differences, and maybe not potentially in a competitive neighborhood. You might find yourself in a different competitive neighborhood, but you should really pay attention to that, because it will help you kind of review where you are in your competitive neighborhood as you journey through the season. And if you stay 2 to 3, or if you get that down to 1, you know that actually on any given day, that result could change. And it's something that you can use as a guide, as a measure, a starting point as you journey through your season. So
Harry, can I just ask a question? Sorry, it's me interrupting, but I think that's really helpful. I'm just wondering if it would be useful going forwards when we get the more in-depth discussion about each caption, whether or not we could ask the guys to do a sort of a practical breakdown of what that might look like in reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, just so that we can translate that into an actual something you can visibly appreciate, perhaps. Just a thought.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a judge would, in the UK, it might be a bit easier to see. But as a judge, they would probably be looking a group between box 4 and box 3. That would naturally open up those tenths. But if a judge is working with two groups that are very similar and they're trying to get them into that middle of the box 4, and they're trying to keep it very competitive, number management is everything for a judge. And sometimes it's tough. It's tough to manage that because you don't want to open it up. You want to keep them competitive because there are some insignificant differences. But you could have insignificant differences on your vocab, but then significant differences on your excellence. And that is not unusual to see. Each subcaption is having its own little competition to get your total. But that's a really
is it worth just mentioning the box 5 obviously is much closer because logically you don't have significant differences when you're looking at that level. So
absolutely.
If you think about it, the top ones in that box 5 are all very slight or moderate or very close together, hence the difference in terms of the spread.
Absolutely. Once you get to box 5, as you can see, it's 10, where box 4 is 20 points, box 3 is 20 points. Poor box 1 only gets 6 points, but that's okay. We don't want anyone in box 6.
The key thing is those spread guidelines are related to each of the boxes for sort of competitor neighborhood comparison. They're not actually across the whole sort of 5 boxes. So,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But we'll add some more value into that when we have the breakdowns of the captions with Adam Sage and the guys as well. But this is just to pop this on your radar so you kind of understand where and why your competitive neighborhoods are taking place. And this is the back of the equipment sheet in terms of the excellence. So this is what the judges are looking at. So if we look at, obviously you've got box 1 on the end there, we don't really use 2, 3 points of comparisons in the middle. And then you have 4 and 5 on the other side of the gray area, which is your points of comparison. Those are the areas that a judge is looking for, recognizing, rewarding, and these are what drive your scores to get you through box 3, box 4 to reach the spells of box 5. So as you can see, the points are there all down the center, and they're cross-referencing throughout. And a judge will be looking at this throughout the program. They memorize them, to be fair, after a while, and then at the end in terms of their wrap up. So just some equipment insights as well. Once again, this is all taken from the WGI Judges Manual. So the equipment vocabulary includes, but is not limited to, a list of areas that you can all experiment with, whether you're running a cadet group through to a world-class group. This is what the key areas of a judge is looking for. It's very basic: spins, tosses, exchange, wraps, tempo, different tempos, different meters, different rhythms, could be syncopated, dexterity, strength. These are the areas that a judge is looking for. So because the judges are typically in the UK down low, these are your downstairs judges, so they can really dig in and sample everything that's going on in front of them. So that was equipment. Let's move on to movement. So movement really it's quite similar in terms of its structure, its judges structure, to movement. And that shouldn't be a surprise because the movement and the equipment should be working together. It should be collaborating, and both movement and equipment should always be considered from a choreography standpoint and from a design standpoint. They can't do one without the other, not effectively anyway, not comfortably anyway. But as you can see, the vocabulary points, which I find interesting, there's 5 here. So range and variety of movement skills, the dynamic range through the efforts of space, time, weight, and flow. Remember, that was also on the equipment point as well. The dynamic ranges they're consistent throughout. Depth, range, and variety of blend of equipment and body. That same comparison point was on the equipment sheet as well. The range of material most compatible with performance training. Equally, that one was also on the equipment. So there's a lot of synergy between the movement and the equipment captions as well. The scoring ranges are completely the same. No changes there. It's absolutely consistent throughout. The only thing that changes are the points to comparison, because the judge is focusing their attention on the body and what the body is doing and how the body is working with the equipment. This is what the judge is looking for. Let's stay within box 3 here. So in box 3, it's looking for some variety, longer phrases. Remember, that was very similar to the equipment, that's a criteria as well. Occasionally layered with equipment there, the third box down, and limited range of intermediary material. There's a whole bunch of things that the judge wants to give you recognition and wants to give you a big score for. The judges will want to give you the most points. That's the way the system works. It's a build up, not a build down. Box 4, as you can see, it gets tougher to get there. The qualities need to be higher and the achievement level needs to be clearer. So sometimes you can have the best book in the world and it can be really, really tough. But if your performers are not trained, hang on, someone's trying to join, I think. No, all right. Yeah, if the vocabulary of the movement is tough and the performers cannot achieve, you're going to find it tough to get to box 4 because it just won't be readable and you won't get the quality, you won't get the reward and recognition for that. So once again, this is the bottom of that sheet. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same process that the judge is going through. This is about excellence. So this is how the performers are achieving the movement vocabulary that the choreographer or the designer has presented to the performers. So understanding and the application of the movement principles, understanding the application of the space-time weight and flow. So whilst the designer has written that or choreographed it, do the performers actually understand the qualities of the space-time weight and flow? The judge will really dig into that and say, I can recognize it because 2 out of your 7 performers are actually achieving that, but it's not consistent throughout the whole group. And remember, this is about the whole group or the whole moment.
Sorry interrupting you. Can you just see if Kirky's waiting to get in?
Kirsty?
Kirky, Ian Kirk.
Oh, Kirky.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
Otherwise
okay.
known as Kirsty.
Joining us.
Sorry.
I can't even see. Oh, he's just flashed up. Here he is.
Welcome.
Welcome, Kirky. And of course, training and support as well. That will feature. And remember, this is an AGuard sheet as well. And just to remind you, I've been quite consistent with this. The sub-caption spread guidelines are there as well. Once again, it's really useful for you to understand these and what these sub-caption spread guidelines mean for when you're looking at your recap sheet. It just gives you an extra little bit of information. So this is the movement how. So this is the criteria, the points of comparison that the judge is looking for. Once again, I won't go through this because there is a ton of information there. And maybe we can share this presentation in some kind of PDF as well as the video that you guys can use as a handout and get that across to Alan. I'm sure he can get that shared for everyone, just because there's a ton of information here. And movement insight, once again, this is all taken from the WGI manual. You'll think, oh, this is quite basic, but this is just what it is. Sometimes we overcomplicate some really simplistic terms. The movement vocabulary may include, but is not limited to, traveling, jumps, hops and leaps. Probably more familiar with cadets, junior level maybe. And then turns, multiple turns, balances.
I was hoping you might demonstrate some of this, Barry.
I would, good, but I've got low ceilings and I get some good air. So
Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Thanks for that, Sharon. Can I not mute you? You know, then you go through to the dynamic range of efforts, and I think I'll let the movement equipment judges talk a little bit more about the dynamic range of efforts, because that's a tough one. That is sometimes more about natural ability as well as the information and how they dig into that. So I'm going to let that one, because we're just coming up to like a Q&A session with those guys in a minute. So I'll hold off. Individual responsibilities, the method of build, step size variations, orientation of path, which basically just means the angle that they're traveling with, traveling from on the top. So those are like the very simple specifics that a judge will look for, and some points that you can use to actually consider. Don't over egg your movement, keep it simple, and build up from there. So just before we go into our Q&A session with the downstairs judges, I think it's quite nice to introduce them. Hopefully they all like their photos. I stripped them from their Facebook, so they obviously like them. So Helen Bassett is one of our movement judges. Darren is movement and equipment. And of course, Sam Catcliffe is a movement judge as well. And our equipment judges, I'm sure they all like their photos. Ivan's got an action shot there. Rich Gubby for equipment, and of course Tony Lee's equipment as well. So those are our downstairs judges. I don't think I've forgotten anyone. I absolutely hope not from my list. If I have, Pete, please apologise to them on my behalf. This is taken from the email list. So what I'm going to do is kind of just open this floor up now for these people as questions. And Sharon, has there been any questions in the chat section?
No, nothing at this point, Barry, apart from could you let Kirky in? So
good, and we did that. So that was
we've dealt with that.
That was a box 5 moment. I'll open that up. So feel free to come off mute and ask one of the guys, or actually no, Helen's not with us this evening. Ask one of the guys a question on something that relates to the equipment and movement. If there is a question, if not, we'll shoot through. Or I could also spin that on the head and say, Darren, Sam, Rich, Ivan, Tony, I guess there's a question for you. Maybe one of you could just kind of expand into what the dynamic efforts and the dynamic ranges are, because I think it comes up a lot in commentary, but I'm not sure everyone really fully understands that really. And I guess what a good value of that would look like.
I'll just start because I'm off mute. It is different definitely between equipment and movement, but there are also similarities between the two. I'll go through a couple of them that I tend to not focus on, but I tend to talk through in critique maybe. And one of those is flow. And when I'm referring to flow, that can either mean that something, if you think about a lyrical song where something seems to have a really long phrase length and it just seamlessly moves from moment to moment. And then if you maybe think about the complete opposite of that, like a really hard rock song that's very like bound and defined and very staccato and very percussive. Now, those things, one is not better than the other, but what you like to be able to see in the vocabulary is that the choreographer has thought about using a variety of those flows. So using some moments where they're utilizing breath and utilizing the full extension of the count structure, but then not necessarily at the same time, but at another time thinking of maybe something that's a bit more bound and a bit more staccato and percussive from a vocabulary standpoint. And then from an excellence standpoint, you're thinking, how much do the members really understand how to utilize the body and equipment to extend through those long lyrical phrases? Or how much do they know that they need to tense their muscles and use specific parts of their body to be able to really use those percussive staccato moments as well? So when people ask me about flow, that's probably what I would allude to, something outside of the colour guard world. That might help from a choreographer or a technician standpoint as well, because I find that it's equally as important that your technicians understand what the choreographer means to try and write to the music. There's no point just cleaning stuff to all go around together if the members don't really understand how to move that equipment through space, because that will really help that flow side of the dynamic caption.
Yeah.
I hope all that made sense.
That does make perfect sense. Perfect sense. So we also have Darren on the call. So Darren, I hope you don't mind me asking you a question as well this evening. Darren, obviously through critique, where I've been with the Well Guard or with the Junior Guard, breath at the beginning of the season is something that most groups struggle with. I wonder if you could just sort of elaborate on kind of like the importance of breath through equipment and movement, and how you recognize that as a judge, because you're so close to the performers. Could you just sort of maybe just sort of elaborate on kind of how important that could be and how you recognise that?
Yeah, definitely. I think breath is critical for whatever style you're going to choose to choreograph, whatever show you're going to do. From its basic element, it's about how they breathe through the phases. Do they just, like a lot of colour guards when they're first starting out, especially at the beginning of the season, do you press play and they just stop breathing and it doesn't flow, and they take very few breaths as they progress through the phases and through the production, and that's at its very basic level. But when you're looking at breath, you're also looking at, especially when you're looking at the lyrical qualities, you're wanting the breath, the control of breath, the use of breath to be able to build these highs and lows within the production, to be able to allow the phrases to flow better, to be able to bring in kind of, I guess it's more of a how they understand the use of the music and to be able to breathe through the phases and make it flow and make those ups and downs as lights and shades within the production. It's really difficult, and I think it's something especially the younger groups and some of the older groups struggle with, and especially when you layer on more complicated phrases, when you've got a lot of integration of body with equipment as well as staging. They really struggle to understand to breathe through your phases because it just makes so much difference.
Yeah. Thanks, Darren. That's it. I mean, I know obviously we're going into critique, whether you're working with cadets or whether you're working with a well group, you know when they're not visually, you can see that they're not breathing because the shoulders come higher and higher and everything becomes tense, right? And I guess when you guys are downstairs, you can see that everything's riding high, it's becoming stiffer and stiffer.
And that's in its very basic form, it does go a lot deeper.
Yeah. Thanks, Darren. That's really good. Has anyone's got any questions at this point?
Barry, can I just come in to add to what Darren
absolutely
picked up on? Sort of linked into that, the whole concept of this sort of cleaning clarity against the technical understanding. And that's huge because you can have poor technique inconsistently across the members, and by pure fluke pull off, a consistent held toss, and the following week it'd be the opposite. And I think that's probably what a lot of the guards sort of miss the point. They don't grasp the concept of rehearsing clarity and cleaning, thinking that's what it's about, and they forget the technique and all this sort of what goes on in the sort of pre-season and developing that program over the season even.
Yeah, I would say.
And you should really see the problem and sort of link to what Darren just talked about with the breath. That's a good example where, there's all sorts of different breathing going on, but every so often they might pull off a consistent look, and then other times it'll be complete hodgepodge.
I tend to agree with Ivan. That tends to be a massive problem from a downstairs point of view, probably more so than the upstairs. We see it more downstairs, is that things can get clean because you've spent 150 hours in a sports hall, and so things are going round in time because you've spent so much time there. That doesn't mean technically that they're trained and technically that they're all doing the same thing. They just happen to be going around in time because they've spent 150 hours in the sports hall. That's a massive difference, and it's probably one of the big learning curves that the downstairs judges have had in the last 4 or 5 years, that you have to look past that. You have to look past the fact that things are going round in time. Look at what the hands are doing, look at the hand positions, look at the muscle development, look at the breath, look at the control, the ambidexterity, all of those good things that you've seen in the pack, and make sure that they're okay. And I think that's one thing that the WGUK judges have started to learn, and we're trying to apply more consistently, but I think needs more work from the units.
Jason made a really good point in the chat. One really good example is the exhale of breath on the release of a toss. Now, that's not just to make sure everybody does it together, but if you think about biology, the use of breath, if nothing else, is to get oxygen to your arm muscles and to be able to make sure that the lactic acid isn't building up, not to get into a biology lesson, but to make sure that the lactic acid isn't building up so much that you suddenly get tight. Another way that you can really show, to pick up Ivan's point on the rehearsing it until it's clean, or rehearsing and using your training to show a good level of excellence on a toss, for example, to keep the same point, is things like release hands and release points. It's so easy to see underneath a toss where release positions are and the technique that people are using to get into a release position on the left hand, for example. If you see some people that are doing a hand here, if you see somebody where they've got a hand straight, if you've got somebody doing a pull down technique, neither one of those techniques in and of itself is correct or incorrect. It's the choice of the organization about what they do. What is easy for an equipment judge to be able to see and to give credit for is where that technique is being applied consistently across the people that we're sampling. And then it's very easy to then refer that against another group where they've potentially got a lot of different techniques going on the same toss. The toss might all go up, they might throw 4 rotations, they might all catch together, but you can't give that full level of credit for excellence because you can see that the technique and training is different. So that's Ivan's point on rehearsing it until it's clean, or using your technique and training that you've hopefully built up during the pre-season and then continue to do in your warm-up program to be able to help you succeed in your show.
Yeah, I mean, during the first almost 3/4 of the season, if not almost into the last couple of weeks, I personally like to reward the technique and the training. And if you see a few blemishes where it's not spot on and hit on the sort of nail, then so be, because that probably might ultimately get there in the 2 weeks' time. It's there's nothing worse than seeing poor technique, which you almost by pure fluke can pull off in terms of clarity. So it's key that we can reward the excellence and the people who've been training and the skill coming through, rather than somebody who happens to in January, the middle of 15th of January, pull off a clean looking show for some strange reason, and then in middle of February, it's a complete hodgepodge. So because they've not got the technique or the training in the first instance. So that's probably a bit of a clue to the guards to sort of think about that focus rather than sort of hammering 150 hours of rehearsing, cleaning a toss to all try and catch it together. The fact you don't know how to release it or catch it in the same way is the point you're missing.
Sometimes I think from a designer's perspective, you'll sometimes see a cleaner show at the first show, and then as the shows develop throughout the season, more work gets put in. So it was probably cleaner because they didn't have any work going into it or even coming out of it. It was an isolated moment, but because it's building up, it puts more pressure on them, isn't it? And that's where we're going to get from the box 2s, the box 3s to the 4s, isn't it? Because it's those challenges.
And I think also to note on that point, Barry, is that just because people are adding more equipment in doesn't mean that their score's going to go up. Because you could be displaying the same skills and you could be displaying the same phase lengths and all that stuff. But if the technique's not there to be able to back that up, it doesn't necessarily equate into a higher score. And I think that is kind of something that is kept over from maybe the 90s, early 2000s, that the whole thing was like, I'm going to go out with half a show, I'm going to add equipment, and then my score's going to go up. It's not necessarily that way, because if you look at the vocabulary, especially, we're not looking at individual skills and going, right, this is an individual skill and this is how well they're doing it. It's about how that skill builds over time into a phase and the connection between skill and skill. So I'm not just going, right, well, they've done a 5 and they've done a toss turn underneath it and they've caught it, right, they've done it this well. It's like they're doing they're doing hop, skip, and jump into this 5. They're doing a toss turn underneath it. They've caught it. They've gone straight out into this. They're doing this, this, and this. And you're looking at the whole phase in its entirety, the connections and all those other points of comparison, rather than just going, right, they're doing that skill. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, guys. I enjoyed that. Very insightful.
That was a good discussion, wasn't it, Barry? I'm just letting you know it's 10 to 9, just so you know.
Yeah, you're going to move on now. We're going to move on. So we're going to go on now to our upstairs captions, which is design analysis and general effects. So keeping in the same format that you're all now very familiar with, because this follows, this certainly follows suit. Oh, I need to just move some things around my screen so I can see. There we go. So here is the design analysis. Whoop, there it was. There's the design analysis in terms of the composition. So this is called composition. Remember, it was called vocabulary before. So the composition in terms of the what. And you can see there's a whole bunch there. Use of design elements, motion to connect events. And this is the design process. So the design analysis judge will be taking an overall high view of your design moments and your program moments. And as you can see, and design analysis, I would say, out of all the captions, it's the one that causes the most challenges from an understanding point of view. I know when I talk to Mayflower staff, they're like, well, what does that mean? Why are they talking about that? And actually, this design analysis is very intricate, and it's actually could be quite precise, but it has so many areas to include. But of course, the more areas it includes, the more reward that you can get if you make your decisions right. So as you can see, the variety of design choices, the third one from the bottom, transitions of equipment changes. This is what a judge is looking for. And it seems quite basic. One of the most basic things that you can get right is your transition of equipment changes. Keep the flow going. And as you get that right, your general effect judges will also pick up on that as you come through. Characteristics, detail, nuance, it's all there. And I would definitely encourage you to look at these comparison points that a design analysis judge is looking at from a composition standpoint, because I think it will really help you structure your programs and design your programs and considering all these points to get more points, so forth. You can see the boxes are the same, box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just to add a point, it's always 5 boxes until you get to world class, where there's a box 6. And that box is like 96 to 100. So, but other than that, it's 5 boxes. This is what a design analysis looking for. Once again, it's the same structure. As you can see, sticking with box 3, it's pretty much basic. You know, that's your basic understanding of the composition, or that's what the judge is referring to in terms of your composition standpoints. Design, relationships, imaginative and innovative use of design choices. Easy for me to say. Variety of design choices, transition and equipment changes. It's all there. These are all things that you definitely need to take away and review, because we can all learn from this. And rest assured, I am frequently referencing this just to make sure I've not missed an opportunity to create something to get reward. So excellence. So it's composition and excellence. So this is how the performers are contributing, understanding, achieving what the design process is in terms of the composition. So achievement of spacing, line, timing, and orientation. Achievement of the dynamic ranges. There they are again. Their dynamic ranges feature throughout. It's so important. The design judge will talk about training, concentration, stamina, recovery. You get points for recovery, the better recovery. I know that's a hard one to teach, and hopefully you won't get the opportunity to teach someone how to recover, but it's certainly something that they should understand, because the smarter their choices become, the more points it becomes. And we know we have all experienced that one performer that just is having a bad day. The recovery doesn't happen on the first situation. Then there's a second situation, and by you know it, the poor child is crying and they've not even finished the show. It just gets them down. But you should definitely think about how you can work about recovery and recovery options. And that could just come down to maybe how they're breathing at the time, because gaining their breath will just, okay, stop. Let's see where we're at. So achievement of characteristics, detail, and nuance. It's all there. There's those sub-caption spread guidelines as well for your neighborhoods. You know, keep referring to those, make yourself familiar with those as well. It's a tricky one, design analysis, because it does factor in. Some people think it's just like a bolt-on it's just like another general effect, but maybe more nuts and bolts. Some people think it's downstairs meets the upstairs, and it's just kind of figured its own stuff out, and probably kind of does really in some way. But design analysis it's an analysis. It's an analysis. That's what the caption is. It used to be called ensemble years ago. I'm sure it did now. And it just got changed to design analysis, because they want the judge to really dig in and reward and understand. So some of the areas I thought, just as an insight. So you're always here, horizontal and vertical. And I've seen some blank faces walking out. not in terms of my critique with my staff, like, what's the horizontal? What's the vertical? So I thought, actually, let's just bring that to the forefront. So when you hear a design analysis judge say, yeah, your horizontal's all right, yeah, you're like, oh, cool, yeah, but your vertical's all over the place. Well, oh, what does that mean? So basically, it's this simple. Your horizontal, it reflects the development of the events through time from start to finish of the show. So that's the program. The vertical is reflects the design of the body and equipment within each event. So that is it. You could dig into more if you want to, but I would just keep it that simple. So when you hear one of the design analysis judges say your horizontal and your vertical, that's exactly what they are referring to. It's a bit of judge jargon, because you say, why don't you just talk about like the moment, the show? Why do you have to talk? That's how they're trained. So we have to be on the same page. So they are usually are the events, both the vertical and horizontal aspects of composing are inseparable. Our language is used for convenient and easy descriptions. And I left that in there because sometimes it's not easy, but if we all get familiar with it, it'll become easy. Something else as well from a design analysis judge that you should be hearing on your commentary, and you should be considering from your own design and putting your shows together, the artistic efforts, the qualities that make the aesthetic contribution. There's a lot of jargon in there as well. This is why I'm going to bring this out to you and send this out to you as groups, and you can all take a good read of it. Like, these are the points from the WGI manual that will help you. Orchestration is another word that people get lost in. It's that simple. Orchestration, the logical progression of ideas, as well as the layering of combination of design options. It's just the orchestration of it all. It's that simple. Components of speed, direction. There is a lot for you to dig into and reward. I think design analysis is so probably because it connects multi facets. And when we have our design analysis evening with William Chumley, who's a master at this, have your questions prepared and throw it in, because he's going to be going into some really good detail to help you consider this further. And something else is, I always think when I hear it, oh, why is the design analysis judge talking about color? Well, they're talking about color. They can talk about color. They can definitely talk about color. So don't just expect to hear that from the general effect judge. The design analysis judge can talk about color and how it influences the look and like dynamically and the intensity, weight. They can go into that. That is there as well. So they don't judge it as an effect. It's judged in that area there. And I'm going to open that up. We're going to just come up to that when we go to the Q&A session. I'm going to ask Ivan to kind of elaborate on that for us. So just give you a heads up there, Ivan. I'm coming to you for that question at the end there. Now, probably the best caption of them all, this is the best one. All the cool judges do this one. They're known. They're very popular because most of all this is my caption as well. So general effects. So this is the one we have two judges, and we have two judges because this is kind of the area that WGI want to really build up. This is about the show. If you're going to go and watch a stage show, general effects is probably the closest that we get to it. It's probably the most fun a judge can have. But actually over the years, the judge has been asked to push more and understand more about what goes into the nuts and bolts to make a general effect. So as you can see, in no weighted order at all, there's the 5 comparison points. Program, concepts, got to have a concept. Production values. When we have our session with Adam Sage, he's going to be talking about kind of the importance of production and how you can really elevate that as well. Dramatic contouring and pacing, how you're connecting and moving and shaping the show. Effective design of equipment. So that was a thing with the judge, but actually, and I'm going to open that up to Pete, just so Pete, as a heads up, I'm coming to you for that question to talk about the effective design of equipment and movement and staging. I'm giving you a bit of a heads up. I feel bad because I didn't give the movement equipment any time, Judge. I just threw you in, but I'm giving the upstairs guys a bit more time. The range and variety of effects. I know we've got Ken with us this evening as well. So Ken, just heads up, I might dig into you on that. And visual musicality and mood. And I think that one we get quite right here in the UK. Musicality and mood is pretty much what we're good at. I think it's the other areas that can really elevate and enhance that as well. So those are the 5 key comparison points or points of comparisons, which is something that the judges use in terms of terminology. This is what they're looking for. So you can see that we'll journey through box 2, box 3, box 4, box 5. You'll see how that all journeys through together. How you get points for more. The more it's clear, the more it's crisp, the more it feels designed, the more it feels achieved, planned, the more points you're going to get. And like I said, the judges, especially GE, they are connecting with the show. So they will connect with a mood. If you deliver a mood, they'll be with the mood. We've all had those tapes when, oh, I'm not too sure. Am I meant to be feeling happy? Angst? Am I meant to be feeling like on edge? I don't know. What is that? So the better you can do that and actually deliver that to your performers so that your performers understand that, the more points you're going to get. So in general effect, what are the judges looking for from the performer's perspective? Well, they're looking for demonstration of excellence as an effect. So excellence can be an effect. Of course it can. Sustained character. Most shows have a character or a style. Is it consistent? It doesn't have to be consistent. You can change throughout the show. But is it consistent within that moment? Delivered a sustained and dramatic contouring and planned effects. Do the performers understand that? Are they aware that they need to be an aggressive 10 and then drop that down to an emotional 4? Do they understand that? Do they engage with the audience? Are they projecting? Are they looking up? Are they communicating? Even as a judge, when someone's communicating, when it's not. And if they're on a stage show or in a school show or doing a school assembly, these are all things that we can really help bring our youngsters out to make them the big performers of tomorrow. And is it consistent? Artistic qualities, visual musicality, it's all in there. And it's probably the general effects. It's probably the fun one to get on board with. And because we have two different judges, you'll find that one judge might lean emotionally towards one show than the other, and hopefully that will level out. It's not about preference. There's nothing like that. There is not a preference in this. This is about how you make the judge feel, which is actually in turn how you make the audience feel. These are the points. How? Display with greater confidence. You'll see word like, greater confidence in there. Developing introductory success for longer periods of time. Performance stamina, performance composure. If you've got that one excited kid that's going mad and mental, but actually the other 9 are not, God, how are you going to bring them all up, or can you going to tone that one down? Those decisions that we all have to make. And then finally, so we're going to general effect repertoire. Recognizing credits. These are the kind of key areas: insights, comments. This is what they'll talk about: design, quality, effective development. This is all about repertoire. The performance, character, role, identity, bring the show to life. I like that, where the performers are there to bring the show to life. I really like that little tagline of how the performers you can get them involved and say, look, bring the show to life. It's up to them. You literally, they press play, the rest is up to them. It's got to, putting their own energy and putting their own identity and their own personalities into it is really what you want to see. And a judge will absolutely lap that up. So here are our judges for our general effect and design analysis judges as well. So we have Ken, general effect, Pete, general effect, and our judges coordinator, Emma Williams, the general effect, Keely Moore, general effect, myself, and Derek as general effect as well. And then our design analysis judges is Ivan, also our equipment judge, Jerry Baker, and Chris Law. So those are our judges there in all their photo glory. So let's start. I'm going to just a Q&A session, so feel free to come off of mute as well. And I'll start with Ken. Ken, what was my question for you that I left you with?
Okay, you was going to hit me with emotional, aesthetic, and intellectual effect. As a general effect judge, especially over the last 4 or 5 years, out of those 3, I mean, long way back, I'm sure intellectual effect never even existed back in the day. It was all about how you made the crowd react and how pretty you looked. But recently, in recent times, certainly over the last 3 or 4 years, intellectual effect has been the one that has been moving on. And it's a really clever colour guard that can actually doesn't have to tell you what their show's about, because they're going to tell you that in the storyline as they perform. Some colour guards will tell you what their show's about, and actually when you study it, you can see the emotional effect and the aesthetic qualities that are coming through. You don't really see the storyline as strong as it is, and you keep having that debate and critique. You need to keep talking about, I'm not seeing what you're telling me is about. Yeah, a strong performance in effect will have all three. The third one, intellectual one, I think is the hardest one for the colour guards, especially the younger groups. We don't really look for it down here. I guess if you're cadets and your show's about Noddy and Noddy's on the arena, you've hit all three of those straight away. But as you move up into the upper end of A, open and world, the intellectual effect is stronger, and it needs to come through stronger over the years as we get through that, as we go forward from now on. Certainly emotional effect can be on 4 or 5 different levels. Years ago, back in my day when I started in this activity, if you chucked everything in the air and caught it, people were going to, Pavlov's dogs, they're all going to react. Was it good? Probably not. Was it part of the intellectual? Probably not. Was it aesthetic? Well, it might have been if it all went to the same height and we all caught at the same time. That doesn't happen early season. So those 3 things I think are very strong, coming through stronger now than they were 10 years ago. And that's all credit to the colour guards for beginning to learn that. But certainly intellectual for me is the one I can see is still slightly lagging behind the other 2.
I think you're right, Ken, because people's choices tend to move away from intellectual, don't they? In the UK, I think if you venture over to WGI and at CGN, intellectual is more readily available for those programs. I think in the UK, we kind of just steer away from them a little bit, don't we? And I think it's a really tough one, because trying to communicate an intellectual choice of a show to a young group of performers, I think it just goes over their head, doesn't it, really? So, well, I think it's the one that's easy to not try and master. Yeah. That's what these sessions will do, and education will bring up. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we haven't done enough work as a set of judges or a set of sound and intellectual effect yet, but certainly we're moving in the right direction, and hopefully we continue to do so. Thanks, Ken. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Let's move on to Pete. So, Pete, I think my question to you was, I guess, how the GE judges now have to recognise the effectiveness of equipment and body, and we have to really dig into that now in general effect, don't we? And a question for you is, like, how do you recognise that, and I guess how you value that as well, and where you probably see some vulnerabilities within the performers.
I think as a judging team, we've certainly moved on in the last few years in recognising that point of comparison. So if we go back a few years, it was probably the weakest one from the upstairs captions to recognise actually what is it being asked of the performer at that point in time. So not just, oh, that's really pretty, it's aesthetic, it's emotional, it's going round at the same time, how lovely, but actually understanding more of the mechanics that the downstairs guys are recognising, and understanding the training required to deliver the effect through the equipment and the movement. And we've really been pushing to recognise that actually a big moment could be wonderful, it could be beautiful, but actually if the technique and the training's not there to support it, is it really generating the effect across the captions as it should do? And I think that's where we've been trying to push to recognise some of the connectivity skills that Darren and the guys talked about earlier on, that actually it's not just moments in isolation, it's how things connect, actually building up effects. So yes, you might have a single solo toss, which is great. In isolation, it's a wonderful effect moment. But actually, how does some of those connect together to really enhance and build and maximise that effect even more? And then give the credit, because that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to credit and give, as Barry said, as many points as possible. And and then how does the performer then cope with that and kind of layer on that extra little bit, that extra little character, performance, detail, whatever it is. And there's a phrase within the book which I always like, which is the members bring the show to life. And that's when you really get an elevated performance. And they know how to spin the work, they know where to stand, they know where to move. The show's been designed fairly well, it all works, all the transitions work, but it's really then bringing it to life through the equipment work, through the movement work. And pretty much most people will have 2 or 3 people in a season that they love to watch, because as a spectator, they always know that those performers just bring something else to the show. And that's what we're kind of looking for as an effect judge. It's how they bring it to life.
That's great. Thanks, Pete. Really good. Thank you. And then Ivan, I wanted to come to you just to, I guess, expand on colour, the use of colour and within the design analysis, because it's always that question mark, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if you could just sort of give us a bit of an insight into how colour is rewarded and recognised within the caption. Is that okay?
I mean, colour it's so key to all the various components in some sort of direct or indirect way. Could probably talk for hours on it, but really, just summing up, we don't judge the effect of colour, we judge the influence of colour. So purely looking at influence of colour, you look at how that that influences the actual focus of the show, the design, the way it sort of puts across an idea in terms of the harshness, the softness, whether there's a deliberate high intensity or a softer intensity, the clarity, the readability, everything sort of has an indirect sort of link in with colour. Even sometimes, unfortunately, you get a guard who comes out in, say, like a red outfit, and then they go to a couple of shows in the season where they haven't been to before and suddenly find the floor's red, not being aware of that, and you suddenly straight away have a bit of a readability issue. But it's not that, it's not that particular guard's fault, but that comes through. So you have to be a little bit tolerant in that respect. You don't expect the guard to say, well, we need to have some workable outfit that's going to basically work from the first second to the last minute of the show, because obviously you don't get that. But some shows are structured in a way where they deliberately try and use colour in a progressive way. Your own world-class show last year, very much about how you keep changing costumes and sort of different types of looks and using colour very much in that way. But analysis judges weren't there to sort of say, well, I think you should have gone for a yellow rather than a green. It was very much about, if there was a problem, whether the colour was too strong or it was too soft. Yeah. And was there a real strong colour basically on a so-called third primary type stage where the emphasis should have been on the left-hand side, but because they were perhaps in a very light outfit, the red outfit on the right-hand side was taking the focus, even though they were at that point considered to be the third primary. Yeah. So it all sort of links in, really. But I think the key thing is the influence of colour rather than the effect of colour.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Ivan. It's always something that has been there, and when I know that when I've heard other staffs of some of my Mayflower groups talk about, well, why are they talking about colour? You're right, it's the influence of colour, isn't it, as opposed to the effect of colour. So that's really interesting. Thanks, Ivan. Oh, hang on a minute, I'm not on my screen. Right, so just finally, as we kind of wrap up, and I'm doing very good on I'm doing really good on time, actually, after, since Sharon stopped interrupting me, I managed to catch up. I just wanted to kind of just go through critique, and just because, yeah, I mean, I used to struggle with critique in terms of how do I prepare my staff to go to critique, what do I want to achieve from critique, and actually on the other side of the table as well, from a judge, I think it's important for you to know kind of what's expected of a judge and kind of what they expect from you as well as design staff and instructors and designers and techs during the critique environment. So just a couple of points really to share with you. So that, I mean, the main purpose of critique is really to provide a discussion venue where instructors and judges can grow from the exchange of information. That's it. Like, it's very consultative. That's what should be happening there. The next one is to allow instructors to gain clarification on any questionable area of the commentary. So listen to your commentary, I mean, as a judge, I see people that come in to critique with like reams and reams of notes, and then I see others that don't, and it's all down to choice. It's all down to timing as well. And then the third point is to discuss the scoring application, offering insights into what drove that number and I guess the rank and rate. Now, I know historically, some groups don't have the opportunity to go in and talk about the number because the number is not available to them. Certainly if you're cadets and juniors, because your critique might be in the middle of the day. So that might not be available for you, but there is something that you can follow up with after and talk to through the correct channels, through to Pete, that can talk a little bit more about you after the event has taken place. So that's the kind of 3 simple points of the critique. But instructors, how can they best prepare for critique? Well, point 1, knowing the scoring system and speaking from an informed base is definitely going to help you. This is why we're running this. If you are not informed of what the manual says, what the judge's criteria is, what the value of the 10th is, what is the vocabulary, what's the point of comparison, well, you're not really in a position to get the most out of critique. So I'd really encourage you, and like I said, we're going to share this, just to revise even the morning of, or the day before, the week going into a show, is kind of look at that system. And then you will have an informed base and you'll get so much more value out of the critique environment. I can assure you that will definitely happen for you. Listening to the digital commentary and making notes relative to questionable areas. So you don't have to make notes of everything you say of the judge. So if I'm listening to a commentary tape, I kind of know what my 3 areas will likely be. So I will just go to those 3 areas that I really want to know what the judge said to go into critique, because we only have 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I can't remember now, but it feels rushed. So I just want to focus on 3 distinct areas. I don't want to talk about the whole tape. I just want about 3 areas. I need to go away and let it all digress. But you definitely, honestly, you need to listen to the commentary. I know we have time constraints. I have time constraints as well. I finish World, I'm straight in critique. And we're doing other things. Load the van, put the equipment in the bag, chase all the kids up, get them on retreat. There's a lot going on, but I've got some ideas for you on that one as well. And in critique, be specific. Make notes as well. Make notes what the judges are saying. I see some really good groups that do this, and I've experienced some great groups that do this. And yeah, I see groups that just walk away, and I'm not even really sure that they understood me. So you can ask questions, and you should ask questions. Staying relaxed and in control of your fatigue, emotions, and frustrations. That's a massive one. Critique comes typically at the end of the day, when we are all tired, we are emotional, we are frustrated, and that's when our own breath support will help us. Speaking in a calm tone of voice and listening to the answers. You won't achieve anything by going in a negative mindset. I know it's hard. I've been there. I'll hold my hand up. I've been one of these people, but it's counterproductive to the situation. So C's obvious. We've all been there, but I think it was just some really good points just to bring to everyone. But what's expected of the judge? Okay, so what's expected of the judge? We've said what's expected of the organizations and the memberships. Well, a judge, the judge is expected to take notes relative to the point of comparisons. The judge is expected to identify each guard's neighbors and neighborhoods, find out what the guard's goals. Actually, the last couple of seasons, the WGUK judges have asked, what's your goal this season? What are you looking to achieve? And actually, we're really pushing that as a WGUK judges panel. We want to know what your goals are. Is it just to rock up and do a show? Do you want to try and medal, or do you want us to focus on one particular area to help you develop for future years? What are your goals? That's really important, and the judge will really want to know that. The judge will encourage any instructors to take a lead. It's your critique. It's your time. Rest assured, the judge won't sit there and not say anything if they know that you're not ready for the critique. It's face time, isn't it? Really, it should be consultative. So the judge won't sit there and wait for you to lead. They'll get started. They'll get started. Know the instructor's primary concern, events, and the scoring. So the judge we'll get to the point. Okay, what's your major concern today? What was your major concern, and how can we help you? That's what it's there for. And once again, look, the judge will be relaxed, in control, fatigue, emotions, and frustrations, because just like the performers and the staff, the judges have been there all day and watched a ton of shows and had to really focus. So that's their job as well. Look, a judge is not able to, they're not there to tell you how to fix your show. Many questions come in from organizations and, well, what do you suggest? How should we do that? They're not there to fix the show. I've done this, right? One of my first ever judges assignment, I said, oh, actually what you should do is actually move the flags forward and put the rifles around the back. And that group went off and did exactly that. But actually what they did, they went the opposite way. They took different paths. And then I said, no, that's not what I meant. I said, well, you didn't say that. You said put the flags at the front and put the rifles at the back. And we did that. And actually you've not given us any credit. So I learned very quickly. And then I did it again. But if anyone asks me now as a judge, and I know the rest of my colleagues as well, what do you suggest? What would you do? They just cannot comment. It just makes them very vulnerable. And they shouldn't entertain that conversation. So don't be offended if the judge says, that's not my job. That's not their job, and that's not what they're there to do. But they can certainly give you some pointers in terms of what the criteria would want to see or would value more.
Can I pretend I'm in critique and just give you a 5-minute warning?
You can. 5-minute warning. The judge will refrain from referring to past year's colour guards and, on guards that you may have taught. It's not personal. A judge can't say, well, let's see how you got on from last year, because there's probably different kids. You've probably got different members. You definitely have a different show. So a judge can't compare one group from 1 year to 1 year, and equally, probably not from one show to another show, because the groups just evolve over a time of the season. We'll definitely let the instructor guide the conversation. There will be situations where the instructors have not listened to commentary, so judges will appreciate that. They do understand that, but they just hope that you make every effort to listen to the commentary. And do the best to make it a positive and productive environment as possible. Remember, comparative questions about competitive neighborhoods will be asked, so they have to be ready for that. So just a couple of my sort of critique tips as well, just to help you out there. Just arrive on time and together. There's nothing worse than a judge sitting there and you've got like a rota system of staff turning up and leaving and all this. Make your notes. Take notes during critique, make notes prior to critique, have a copy of the caption criteria with you to refer to. Discuss the score and the value of 10th. Now you know that, you can talk about it, demonstrate your knowledge of the system, and debrief as a staff team as well. Use the information to plan your next rehearsal and your show opportunities. New for 2021, the board are looking at different opportunities for critiques as well. Maybe some post-critique. We may look at something virtually, certainly for the virtual season as well. So just to let you know, we are looking at that, and we're working with Pete and the judges and the board to figure out how we can make best time and value that as well. And that's it really, guys. That's if there's any questions. Now's the time. I have my 5-minute warning.
We've got a couple of minutes for questions, yeah.
Any questions from anyone, or judges to want to add anything as well?
No.
I'll add the same thing that I added at the end of the last session as well. I appreciate there's like 30-odd people on this, and some of you may not want to ask questions, but there is the email address, education@wguk.org.uk. If you don't want to ask questions now, please don't not ask questions. If you want to ask, send it in and you will get a response from that email address. So if you don't want to do it now.
Earlier, Alan, so it is in there.
Brilliant. Yeah.
If Alan was far too quick for you. So just as a sort of a wrap up, firstly, thank you, Barry, you did really well. It's not easy in a virtual session, but I think the whole context of tonight's session was just to sort of give a bit of a general overview of the judging system and how that works. Which I'm sure everyone has gained something from. I am left wondering how many groups will be doing a show about Noddy. I'd also like to thank those from the judging community that have joined us tonight. I think everyone will agree it's been a much richer discussion for that. And I hope that you'll continue to sort of with us on the journey. So there are 6 sessions booked, and this is number 2. So, and as luck would have it, we have Mr. Adam Sage's details on the screen. So he's up for the 1st of November, which is a Sunday. So next Thursday you have an evening off. Well done. And so yeah, you can read all about him, but he has sort of a rich history in drum corps and colour guard. I think Suncoast Sound and Cadets, and he's in the Phantom Regiment currently, I think, and sort of all sorts of designing. But of course, as a WGI judge, he'll be able to add some depth and insight to our introduction tonight. I think, as Alan has said, the education@wguk.org.uk email there is please use it. And I mean, I'm sure some of you have got our direct contacts, and that's absolutely fine as well. But we really, really value people's feedback and suggestions, although we're doing a bit of a judging theme over these first 6 weeks, purely because hopefully it will help everyone with their design options. But going forwards, you know, the education role is about making helping the membership to be the best they can be, basically. So if there's anything you're struggling with or would like additional information from, we're no experts, but hopefully we can find some, well, Barry is, I'm not, but hopefully we can find people to come in and support with that, or even if it's just about facilitating the sharing of information between us as a membership, you know, we're stronger together and all of that kind of political talk. So I think without anything else to add to that, has anyone else got anything? If not, thank you so much for joining us. Please do sign up for the next one with Adam on Sunday the 1st, and anything after that. As I say, there's 3 more after that. And look forward to hearing from you with any feedback and ideas.
Yeah. Thank you all.
This video is part of the WGUK Virtual Education Programme and has been brought to you in association with guardgear.co.uk, the only official European distributor of Design by King products.